Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com, shop there today, and make yourself look good.
Welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. It is going to be a fantastic show tonight. We have Barbara Delong, who is a UFO historian, author, so many other things, radio podcast host. We're going to be talking to her for hours 1 and 2 today. It should be very interesting, talking Secrets of the Stone and before Roswell. Yeah, it's heavy and man, can't wait to get into it. Also, we're going to have Drew Banky joining us with the After Hours wrap-up, and along with Steve Stockton, Tales Untold Missing Person Mysteries. Fantastic show planned tonight, and we're going to be jumping right on into it. Let me see who came in first tonight. Looks like courtesy of Race Fam. We got Race Fam with the gold. As always, we got Kitty Cattywack with the silver, and we have Roger Murray with the bronze. So Race fan saying good evening, Rob. Good evening, right back to you, Race fan. Thanks for coming in. Kitty Cattywack, hi, Rob and all. Thanks for showing up, Kitty Cattywack. Roger Murray dropping knowledge on us. March 13th, 1997 would be the 28th anniversary of the Phoenix Lights. Man, how time flies, right? I thought it was 30 years for some reason. So 28 years. Okay, yeah, there we go. Coming up on that date pretty soon. Thanks for coming in, Roger Murray. Thanks for keeping us informed as well. We have Eternal out there. Appreciate you showing on up here tonight. It's going to be a fantastic show, I promise. You came right on time, and it's going to be a great show. We got Road Flare out there saying hi, Rob. Hi, Road Flare. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you showing up. Mark Eddy is in the building bright and early saying hi, everyone. Hey, Mark. Thanks for coming on in. Miss Catherine Jones. Hello, Mr. Rob G and SOR fam. Hey, Miss Catherine Jones. How you doing? Glad to see you. Who else do we have here? We got Lulu Baby now. Okay, Lulu Baby. Hey, Lulu Baby, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you showing on up here to the show tonight. It's going to be fantastic. We're going to start the podcast side of this in just a moment here. Who else do we have in the building? We got Witness Protection with all the alien head emojis. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate you showing up. Also, Deidre C. Hey, Deidre C. Thanks for showing on up. Who else do we have here? Lil Cam 51 joining us from Twitch. Thanks for coming on in. We got Woo Riders DG. Can you dig it? Woo Riders DG? Thanks for coming on in. Cielo Azul. Been waiting for this show. Hello to all. Appreciate you coming on in, Cielo Azul. Who else do we have here? If we can get to everybody, Showtime 787. Thanks for coming on in. Scott saying hi, Rob. Hey, Scott, thanks for coming on in tonight. It's going to be a great show. It's going to be a great show. Poncho Zork, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you showing on up. Matt Goodcut, thanks for coming in. Did we get to everybody? Almost. Robert Lamont Jr., appreciate you coming on in. Let's go ahead and get the podcast side started real quick here. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We're going to have a fantastic show tonight. We have Barbara DeLong, Arthur, podcast host extraordinaire. Just a long list of things. We'll be getting into some great conversation, talking before Roswell and Secret of the Stones, amongst other things. It's going to be fantastic. You won't want to miss that. Hours 1 and 2, Drew Banky, hour 3. Here we go. Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I am your host, Mr. Rob G. And tonight, we'll be broadcasting on our terrestrial affiliates across North America, plus digitally on digital platforms all around the world. Don't forget, you can access our archives for absolutely free. YouTube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow us on X and Instagram at Spaced Out Radio and at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website, yes, spacedoutradio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with SR Newswire. You can get yourself some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, you can rock out to the man you hear right there, Mr. Ron Bubbles, and oh, so much more. Like I said, it's going to be a fantastic show tonight. We have Barbara DeLong joining us, author, podcast host, his UFO historian for hours 1 and 2. We got Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap up. Steve Stockton, Tales Untold, Missing Person Mysteries, some UFO weird news, all kinds of stuff tonight. It's going to be awesome. I hope you guys are having a great night as we go ahead and get ready to jump on into the show. Without any delay, we're going to go ahead and bring our guest up here for the night. And her name is Barbara DeLong. Barbara, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Oh, I'm terrific. Thank you for having me. This is going to be exciting. Sounds like it's going to be a great show.
I just got the feeling it's going to be a great show. I mean, I don't know. We're going to manifest it. We're going to make it happen. I know you're involved in a lot of great stuff, very interesting stuff too. And I'm just really pumped to be able to be talking to you here tonight. So thank you for joining us. And, with any guest, it's the same. We want to know who you are. We want to know how you got to where you are today. What sparked your interest in the subject, and how are we now sitting here talking today?
Well, I'm 81 years old, so that's a long story.
Wow, you look really, really great. You really, really great.
You.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think part of it is if you love what you're doing, you never work. And I've loved what I've been doing for the last 50 years. So
Yeah.
I started out as a school teacher, and I had the experience of having a UFO land on my campus, and I saw it when it took off, and it swooped over my dorm. It was in 1966, and it was in Michigan, where all of the swamp gas and those things were going on, but it was an authenticated sighting. And I think that's where it started, to be honest with you, because while a lot of people were terrified by it, I was stirred by it in a way I can't explain exactly, except in the Close Encounters of a Third Kind, when the guy is going into the spaceship as one of the exchange whatevers, the people are saying, well, he can't go, he doesn't have training. And they said, but he's been invited. And I felt invited. Now, I felt invited in a very strange way. It was a positive, exciting, pleasurable experience. It was not scary. And from that moment on, I was into spiritual, UFO, whatever, And after 47, the government turned UFOs into terrifying things, but I was never terrified by them. You know, all the movies about these aliens that are eating people and taking over the world and everything like that, I didn't get that feeling. I
Mm.
had the feeling that there was an intelligent source, that there was magic out there to be a part of. And so, on top of the UFO material, I went into the spiritual material as well, became a psychic and a medium and an ordained minister. I've done podcasting for 15 years. I've written a bunch of books. I did a deck of cards that were channeled, that are a spiritual development tool. I've had an amazing ride, and it was a pleasurable one. It was a fun one, and I highly recommend it to everyone. I've had the honor of speaking with, I want to say thousands, but hundreds for sure, of people that I've interviewed. I read um, every author that I have on the show. I read their book before we do the interview.
Hmm.
So I've never done a cold interview, and I've done about 1,100 interviews to date. So I tell people that my radio show, Nightlight Radio, is my PhD program. I have two masters in education, but my radio show is my PhD program.
That is awesome. I feel like that too. I really do. I feel like you definitely get educated through each and every guest that you speak to, and that is awesome. And I want to live up to your standards. So 15 years, I'm only a couple years in now doing this thing. But yeah, so I'm taking some great advice from someone who knows exactly what you're doing. You've been on Coast to Coast, you've been on so many other things as well. You have an awesome book before Roswell, which just kind of blew me away as I was going through it. I'm just like, there's no way that all this is in here. You guys gotta, and you'll see by the end of the show. You guys are gonna make sure you go and get this book. But I do want to start out with Secrets of the Stone.
Ah,
Secrets of the Stone. So that could mean many things. I mean, especially in this field, we talk about stones. There could be gems, energy.
yeah.
What exactly do you mean when you say secrets of the stone?
Well, my husband Patrick Cook and I got together on my radio show actually, and at one he was in California and I was in Connecticut, and he sent me a YouTube and he said, "Have you ever seen any of these stone chambers?" And I looked at it and I thought, and I wrote back. I said, "I live in the middle of them. Of course, I've seen them." And that's what started us on the journey of the secrets of the stones. The stone chambers that we looked into, there used to be about 800 of them in the New England area. Now it's down to 200. They're being destroyed constantly. They are very similar to the passage tombs that they have in England and Ireland, but they're not. They're very different. They're Corbett's construction, and that hasn't been in this country for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. When the colonials came here, they were asking about them. Nobody knew who created them. The Native Americans here did not know who created them. Along with the stone chambers, there are stone walls that are definitely all over the place. They zigzag there. You can't, in New England, it's very hard. If you spit, you would hit a stone wall.
Mm.
They're that common, and they're all over the place. Yet a lot of them are completely enclosed. There's no gateway, so that there's no way, unless you're lifting cows and horses over the wall. Um, and they were not delineating of fields or whatever, so nobody knows what they were for, and nobody knows what the chambers were for. They were not for storage of goods like a cold storage. There is no ventilation. There is no smoke indication. So fires were not, and there was no way for smoke to get out other than the doorway. A lot of them are constructed with the solstice in mind, the rising and setting on the solstices. And a great many of them have a magnetic anomaly in their entranceway. that no one can understand. Nobody knows who created them. They,
That
they were not they were not tombs. They were not shelters for hunters. And there have never been any, to my knowledge, there have never been any artifacts found in them or around them. Oh, and the other part is the feeling inside of them is the same feeling you get inside of a crop circle,
okay.
and no bugs either.
Wow. We just had Dennis Stone on the show with American Stonehenge. I know you're familiar with him.
Oh, yeah.
And we showed a lot of those images of those structures, the stacked stones, flat stones. These are the type of structures you're talking about, right? When you talk
Uh,
about these stone walls.
Oh, yeah, and the chambers. American Stonehenge has a tremendous number of them. I mean, it's if you're only going to look at one place, that's the place to look. Um, I argue a little bit with him about his sacrificial table. I don't think they sacrificed people or animals. I don't think that
Mm.
table for that, but that's just the feeling that I got from it. Um, it's his site is remarkable, and they keep uncovering more and more things and doing more testing on every area that's there. Originally, that particular area was not covered with trees. It was bare, and the trees, have only been there, a while. They go the site itself goes back hundreds of years.
Yeah, and he was talking about how it's all sitting on bedrock there. And we, just like you stated, we see a lot of these stone structures overseas, and you don't see many here until became familiar with Dennis Stone's work there. But so in your idea, you were stating they, I guess, more modern human beings kind of destroy those sites here in America. Does it seem like they do that here, but not overseas?
Well, I know that people are destroying them for patios and stuff like that here. They are not protected at all. In my opinion, they're older than the ones over in Europe. And I have my feeling, my theory now, it was not Patrick's, by the way. We differed on this, but he's passed away, so he can't give you his. Um, so mine prevails. They are mostly made of granite. Again, they're corbelled construction, so there's no cement or anything holding anything together. They are watertight. Um, they're made of mostly granite. Granite has a great deal of quartz in it. Quartz is used for communication. So they were either in some way, either communication chambers of some sort or a teleportation chamber of some sort or an interdimensional doorway of some sort. Yep.
I would like to take a moment to talk about Patrick. If you wouldn't mind, kind of, for explaining to everyone what he was into, because and you guys will be able to see him in action on Secrets of the Stone on YouTube if you go and watch that. And you could tell he had a fire for this, and is,
Yeah.
from what I understand, he studied this. And I guess you can let everybody know what he studied and kind of how that went.
Well, Patrick, when we met, was already quite famous. He published several books, one of which was The Bible UFO Connection. And that was out there way before a lot of other material. And he was, burned in effigy in a couple of places. And then people started to understand where he was coming from. And then people were starting to borrow his material and use it. He did Coast to Coast a lot with George Norrie in the early days. And so he definitely had a tremendous amount of integrity behind him when we started in doing this. And one of the things that we got into tremendously was the stone walls, because nobody was doing anything to protect them. Now, Patrick, like I said, was a writer. He did podcasting before I did, and um, he was quite well known. So when we started to get into this, um, he was all set to take it to Congress and do something about getting the chambers that did exist still protected in some way, shape, or force. Whether it was just giving the people a break on their property tax when they had it on their property. But unfortunately, he died of cancer shortly after we got Secrets of the Stones out there. He died in 2012, and Secrets of the Stones was published in 2011 at the Megalithomania conference.
Wow.
But it was an exciting time, and he really believed that they were older than the passage tombs that are uh, in Europe, and I would concur with him. I think they are, and it makes you wonder when you talk about antiquity and ancient history. Everybody goes to Egypt, to Sumeria, to India, and they don't realize that right here in the United States we have edifices that are as old or older, and we're not taking care of them.
And that's the shame, right? And
Yeah.
what conclusion did you and Patrick come to as far as reasoning why? Is it because, and I have a feeling, but I just want to hear it from you. What did you guys feel like was the reason why we just can't seem to respect history here in the United States?
Well, it would have taken money, of course, but I think that most of the people here in this country are not focused on their history,
Mm,
on where we came from, or the precious things that we have here. And what really concerned both of us was the fact that every time we tried to protect something, we tried to stop a chamber from being destroyed, and we watched it destroyed. It was just taken down and the stones thrown all over the place. And they are energy centers of some sort. I I feel energy centers. These places have energy to them, even if it's not activated, even if it's not in use at this time. It's the attitude of the people in this country is not as respectful as history
mm-hmm.
as the people in Europe and Egypt and so forth. They're living amongst the antiquities, and they've been declared, you know, ancient and precious and all of that. Nobody in this country is doing that. The Smithsonian is doing. They took all the giant corpses and they put them on a barge and they took it to the middle of the ocean and dumped them all. They destroyed it. So um, this country doesn't have the antiquity in their genealogy, I guess. I don't know where else to put it. They really don't want to preserve. They want to say, this is our history. We don't want to reprint our books.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking about that as you were saying that, and I'm like, what would be the reason why? And that, it's just, I guess maybe as America, we're so young as a nation that we don't understand history because we ourselves as Americans don't have history, and everywhere else does. Like you go overseas, and England's been there for thousands
Ever.
of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they actually respect it, and that's why they have all that great, wonderful stuff out there. That makes total sense, and it's sad that that it is that way. And hopefully we can definitely do something to change that.
Well, in this country, in England, the people are living in places that the history has been there forever, for
Mhm.
generations and generations and generations. In this country, that's not the case. Um, my family goes back quite a while. I mean, we helped to settle and everything, but that's only the 1500s. That's nothing. We're young,
Yeah.
and there's nothing that we look at here that yes, they're little caves. They're not huge edifices, but in Europe, they're respected. They're, the stones aren't knocked down. They aren't used for patios. They know that there's a timelessness about them, and you can't. Well, and look what they did to the pyramid. They took all the covering off of it to build, you know, Egypt there. So they did the same thing, but it was too big to actually destroy.
It's so sad, actually, that we can we. It's so bad that you can't even have a building become an antiquity or a historical landmark without having vandals go and do things to these. And these are modern day buildings, so it's like if you're not respecting that, you definitely aren't respecting the other things. It's pretty sad. That's why I lean on to the natives and the tribes, because they actually were here first. If anything, they know. Hopefully, more than we know on the surface. You stated though that
Sure.
they don't even know where these structures are originated from. So how does that work?
Well, they didn't know because first of all, the Native Americans didn't build walls, and they didn't have stone edifices that they lived in. If you go forward 1,000 years, you look around and you wonder just what is here now that will still be standing. And the only thing I can think of is Mount Rushmore.
Right, right.
And what will they think that is? I mean, in 1,000 years, if society is destroyed and the only thing left is that, when people come and see that, will they think that those were our gods?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I was introduced to you through Mark Eddy, and he's also introduced me to a couple other people that we've had on recently, and going back to Christy and Jared, with RQX, and he has this idea that we've been around for millions of years as human beings, and that our history actually goes back way back then. So I guess if the natives don't have any idea where these things
Yeah.
originated from, then you would have to assume that these must be super old. Like, how old do you think some of these structures are?
Well, I would believe they survived the last ice age.
Wow.
So beyond that, and as far as humanity goes, I believe that Homo sapiens came through a portal, a dimensional portal at some time. I don't think we evolved from the apes at all. I
Right.
think that we came fully formed and fully cognizant of things, and began to spread, because originally we were all one family. It was originally one continent. It was Pangea. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until Pangea started to break up that languages and cultures and things like that, because of the environment, changed. And in contrast to the Bible, who said that, the Tower of Babel split us up, I think the splitting of the plates of the earth plates is what did it, and languages evolved from that.
Hmm. That makes a lot of sense. And we're actually running up on our first break of the night, because I would like to, when we come back from the break, get you to elaborate more on the humans coming through a portal. Because I also agree that it just, for some reason, feels like we made like this isn't technically our planet. For whatever reason, it just feels that way. So what we'll
Yeah.
do is we'll go ahead and jump into this first break of the night with our fantastic guest Barbara Delong right here on Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show, guys. Make sure you don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break. All right, we are clear. We are clear. Definitely want to make sure I say hi. And we have 5 minutes, Barbara. So if you need to do anything, you can definitely take the time to do so.
I'm
And
good.
let me see. Abe, I'm out of here. There's no reason to ignore your audience of one person that is showing love. Abe, we're not ignoring any. We're having a conversation here. We didn't see your message, but now we do. Did you have a question? Did you have a comment? Let me go back a little bit. I don't know if this is your first night here, but the way it works here is we take questions at the end of the second hour. So you put them in caps, and then I'll tag your questions. And then the last 30 minutes of the interview, we actually pose those to our guest. So that's what we'll do. So if you have anything, I may have missed it, go ahead and repost it in caps so I can tag it and save it. But I do appreciate you coming on in tonight. You are, we would love to see you back as well. Mike Jones, we do appreciate you coming on in. Rob G, what is the title of the jazz song regularly played during the break? Uh, I'll get that for you, Mike Jones. I don't know off the top of my head. Jay True Seeker, thank you for coming on in. Appreciate you showing on up. Gemini Moon, Barbara DeLong, love her, listen to her a lot on Blog Talk Radio and Curious Times. Nice. Nice. Thanks for coming in. Let's see. Who else do we have? Flat Six. Flat Six snuck in here. Hey, Flat Six. Jessica S has come on in as well. Who else did I miss earlier? Woo Riders DG. Derek Galloway. Did I say anything to you earlier? I don't think I did. Thanks for coming in. Christine. Thanks for coming on in tonight. Let's see. Moving back, just make sure I didn't miss anyone. Um, do. I think Lee the Bee. Lee the Bee. Hey, Lee the Bee. Thanks for coming on in. Let's see. Robert. I did say hi. I'm gonna say hi again, Robert Lamont Jr. How you doing? Thanks for coming in. And I think we are now current. Simply Coco. Thanks for coming on in. Enjoy your show. Good evening, all. We appreciate you. And if you're here for the first time, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Hit the like button as well. Just kind of let us know how you feel about the show. We definitely appreciate it. As a matter of fact, we're on break, so you have a moment to go ahead and just take a moment, go out, hit the little thumb button, thumbs up, thumbs down, if you feel that way, and we'd appreciate it. Zen Zapper, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you showing up tonight. Okay, and I think we're good. So yeah, we usually have you guys post the questions once we start hour two, but if you have them now, I'll keep an eye out for them and you can go ahead and do that. Frankie B, thanks for coming on in. Blah blah blah. Blah blah blah. Frankie B, thanks for showing up. Let's see. Yeah, we're doing good. So what is your YouTube channel, Barbara?
Barbara DeLong.
Okay, under Barbara DeLong. Okay. Guys, make sure you guys go over and hit that subscribe button. I know one of our fantastic mods will post the link in the chat. And make sure you guys go over there and check out Barbara and Mark Eddie. He's over there too.
Oh, Mark's there. He can post it.
Yeah, Mark, are you out here? He was here earlier. I know he's probably still here. I think he's on the East Coast, so he usually watches for like the first hour or two, and then he turns it in. So, but I think he should still be here. Let's see.
Well, he's the reason that I'm getting the shows I'm getting. At one point, I said to him a while back, I said, Mark, I'm a good interview. I know a lot. And he said, "Oh, would you do shows?" And I said, "Yeah." And the next thing I knew, he had booked 30 of them for me.
Yes, Mark is yes, he's on top of his game, and he has a knack for understanding who would be great for an interview. And I kind of
Yeah.
just was like taking his recommendations, and I'm like, okay, awesome, 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 awesome. All right, keep him going then, Mark. Keep him going.
Well, he knows everybody, and I don't know of anyone that has met him that has not liked him.
Okay, we're coming back right now. All right, everybody, welcome back to Space Town Radio, the After Hours radio show. We're having a fantastic conversation tonight here with Barbara DeLong. We're getting into some really good stuff. The Secrets of the Stone. We will be also talking about before Roswell, maybe some giant stuff, a bunch of other stuff as well. Make sure you don't go anywhere. If you miss any of the conversation, hop in the archives. They're absolutely free. Free. YouTube.com/@ Spaced Out Radio. And getting back into the conversation, Barbara, right before the break, you were kind of hinting at the fact that maybe human beings just kind of popped up here or came through some sort of portal. What is your theory on that? Because I thought about that as well.
Well, first of all, I don't think we're really made for this gravity in this atmosphere. So that I really believe that we came through an interdimensional portal thousands of years ago, thousands of years ago, and that there may have been indigenous humanoids here, but they weren't us. And I think that we terraformed, that we began to plant and grow. And when we when we saw the UFOs in the sky early on, nobody was scared of them, and it began to dawn on me that 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 those weren't aliens. We're the aliens, and what we were seeing were the real inhabitants of the planet that lived underground. So that um, we just we don't belong here, and I think that's what makes me so angry. We have misused the planet, we've abused it, we've not paid attention to taking care of it, and it's not our home. And someday we will go through a portal of some sort into another dimension, and the planet will be able to recover, and maybe the original inhabitants will be able to get back on the surface where they want to be.
That's deep, Barbara. That's deep. Because they talk about like ant people, right? The stories of the ant people sort of situation
Yeah,
where they're beings underground. And I never looked at it as okay, they were here first, they're waiting us out sort of thing because we are this sort of violent sort of species, and who would
but
want to confront us, right?
yeah, but here's what really our our species, and I'm talking scientists and stuff. I'm not talking politics, but um, when the Indians and the Anastasi called them ant people, it was because they lived underground like the ants do. They,
Mm,
they were the same as us, but they lived underground. So what did the people do? Ant people, they just designed these monsters that looked like ants and said these are the ant people that saved the people. No, they were people. A whole culture wouldn't have gone with weird looking animals like that. They wouldn't have. And
mm.
when you look at places like Derinkuyu, are you familiar with that?
No.
In Turkey. In Turkey, um, it's an underground city that is, I believe, at least 5 levels deep that will hold up to 5,000 people.
Wow.
And there's another place in Turkey that has um, a similar underground construction that would hold huge populations, and the two sites are linked by underground tunnels.
Wow.
Now, these were tunnels that would hold not only people, but but their animals too. so that it was a whole civilization that was underground. Now, I don't think ant people would have carved that out or anything like that. So that um, I don't know why they went underground, but they did go underground, and it's thousands of years ago.
Man, I mean that makes sense because I'll tell you, if you just look at us, if you look at us, if something were to happen here, if we had some sort of invasive species come land on this planet tomorrow and inhabit the lands, we'd probably go underground as well. I mean, that's literally one of the first thoughts that we have is going in a bunker or going in a cave. So it makes a lot of sense that that would have been the direction that previous inhabitants of the planet would have done. Now and then the ant part of that makes total sense, right? I never even thought
Yeah.
about it in that way.
And not only that, but we are underground. There are underground cities that are now being built.
Oh yeah,
And there are underground tunnels that go from the East Coast to the West Coast already.
yeah.
So that kind of construction is happening already, as if they are anticipating we will destroy our atmosphere.
And you talked about we don't belong here. We're just tearing up the planet. We're destroying the planet. I agree with you on that as well. I've thought that we came here from some other planet, which is the same thing. It's just we didn't originate here. Now we're here.
Yeah.
And it just seems like and I brought this up before. I said it just seems like we aren't in tune with nature here. And that's the dead giveaway. It's like everything else is in sync with the planet, but we're the ones that are the odd man out, and there
Well,
has to be a reason why.
if you look at the indigenous people, the first people, they walked barefoot on the earth. They had a synchronicity with the heartbeat of the earth, and they had very little um, disease. They had very little rheumatism. They had very little wrong with them actually, because they were constantly in sync and in rhythm with the earth. Today, we separate ourselves from the earth. We wear shoes, we have asphalt, we have cement. If people got more in tune with the earth, they would find would have less physical problems. Now, obviously, in the wintertime, you can't go barefoot on the snow. Um, but I have gone to nurseries where they're beginning to plant for the spring, and they let me walk barefoot on the soil in the greenhouses where they're planting things, just to get more in touch with the heartbeat of the earth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've thought that too. It's just wild to hear you say these things because literally all the things you're saying, the things that I've said or thought, and it's just cool to talk to someone that's on that same wavelength. It's definitely, we're and that kind of leans into because you talked about having a UFO sighting as a teacher at a school. One of my favorite UFO sightings is aerial school and any of the school sightings really, and just the way that the extraterrestrials choose, it feels like in those cases to communicate with children and give them messages. And one of the messages that they always talk about is they say aerial schools specifically where they say technology is bad, and so it just makes me feel like even with wearing shoes instead of being barefoot on earth, like the our technological advancements are the things that I feel like are taking us further and further away from nature, and in kind of not allowing us to reconnect with what's natural. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Well, I agree. And look at one of the things that bothers me so much about Bigfoot is that Bigfoot doesn't attack people. It throws rocks and stones at people, rocks and sticks at people. Bigfoot is, I believe, interdimensional as well. But but they whatever culture, whatever wherever they come from, they are peaceful and loving. They don't want to hurt anybody. They want to scare you off for sure. But when you look at the fact that They've not ever found a skeleton. They've not ever found scat. They took the only time I've ever heard of anybody actually getting anything that was Bigfoot linked. Mary Joyce had a group, and they did get a hair that they were able to do DNA testing on, and the mother was human, but the father was an unknown species.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the. I know was it Ketchum, Dr. Ketchum. I think her name is Ketchum, and she did the Genome Project, and they had something similar to that. Yeah, I feel the same way. I don't feel like Bigfoot is here full time. I think Bigfoot. I kind of pose this. I'm like, okay, because they can't find scat or they can't find bodies, and there's people searching for Bigfoot everywhere. So said what makes sense? What makes sense is potentially either we're seeing into their dimension when we have these sightings, like we're peering into their dimension, or they are period or momentarily stepping into our reality, and that's kind of when the sightings happen. So I've been playing with that theory as well. um, I don't know, but what do you think about extraterrestrials? Do you feel the same way about that? As
I
far as
Well, it's funny because originally when UFOs were around, everybody was saying aliens, aliens. Now you can't use the term alien because it's applied to people who are here that do not, that didn't come from here. So the extraterrestrials, um, I don't think there have been as many extraterrestrials on the planet as everybody thinks. I do believe that there has been communication, and I do believe that communication has come through people who were spiritually based. Look at Hitler had the psychics that they helped him. They helped von Braun with the rocket stuff. It was the psychics that brought material through that helped them out. It wasn't little green men walking around that were helping them. It was psychics who were bringing information through psychically or spiritually. So alien and extraterrestrials, I believe they're out there, but I don't think they want to have a thing to do with us. I really don't. All the messages that have ever come through seriously have talked about love and peace and qualities that we just don't have anymore. It's sort of like the element even of peace is something that first you have to have inside of yourself before you can even share it with another.
yeah.
And peace is something that cannot be imposed upon one or pushed upon one or legislated against someone. Peace is something that has to be embraced, not forced.
Let me ask you this.
Mhm.
So, because I know we're going to definitely get into UFOs and extraterrestrials in the second hour with the before Roswell, but I've heard that you're into giants, and so I don't really have anything really bad or good to say because I don't really haven't studied giants yet. So if we're looking at stone buildings and structures that go back millions of years, where do giants fit into that? And do you think that they may have been there before these, or maybe they built these, or because a lot of the stone structures that we see around the world are these huge stones that we feel like we couldn't move ourselves as current day humans, but you would think maybe giants could potentially do some of that work.
Well, in Egypt, a lot of the stone statues, I believe, are life size, and they would be giants. I believe that giants were here. I believe they were a part of the culture, and and they were all over the planet. You found, I know, here in Tennessee, there was a battlefield that was discovered that was the bones of giants and little people. And those bones were taken by the Smithsonian and destroyed because it didn't go along with what they thought evolution was. There are still in the Bible they talk about giants having double rows of teeth, extra digits on their fingers and toes, and usually but not always red hair. The giants that were discovered in the Nevada cave that they were mining guano out of were in that particular, double rows of teeth, 6 digits on hands and feet, and red hair. Um, I had a I had a someone who helped me with my radio show decades ago. It's frightening to say, but decades ago. Her family all had red hair, double rows of teeth, and extra digits on their fingers and their toes. So I believe that that was a strand of the population that flourished and then diminished with time. But there are still people out there that are giants
Yeah.
that now they don't do biblically speaking, they aren't 14 and 15 feet high, but some of the bones that were discovered in some of the places here in the United States and definitely across the world were equally that tall. And it was just, we have mutations within our own human species here, and giants were a mutation. They died out, but they were here, and we had the bones to prove it. Now, now the giants that were here are different from the ones that we're talking with the elongated skulls. That's a whole nother strand.
S- So when you talk about giants, because obviously, when you look at the human record, it goes back all these years, and you can see fossils of humans. So they would assume then that we should be able to at some point dig up one of these giants. Where Why do you think we're unable to do so currently when we can dig up a dinosaur that's 66 million years old and have proof of large lizards? And before you give the answer, I mean, I want to frame this because it does make sense that there would have been a larger species of human here when there was larger lizards here. So it only makes sense that human beings could have followed that same path if we've been here for millions of years. But why do you think it is that we can't find fossils of giants, or do you think it's an interdimensional thing with them as well?
No, no, I think they were a mutation. And I do think they were here. All across the world, there are stories of them, and the bones have been discovered. But for the most part, unfortunately, in this country especially, when they were discovered in the 1800s, it was like, look at this. It's a large human. Look at this. I can put the skull over my head. And then it was used as a doorstop. It was not looked upon as a scientific
Mm.
anything. It was just an anomaly. And the same thing you get. And when the bones were discovered, the Smithsonian collected them all and destroyed them because it didn't fit into their evolutionary philosophy, and they didn't want anything to compromise their power, and they destroyed the evidence.
And I guess that makes sense too, because I guess if they would be a mutation, then technically their population wouldn't be super huge, where you'd just be able to just dig and find one. I guess that it'd make it more rare of a find.
Well,
Uh,
how many human corpses do you find aside
yeah,
from what's in the cemetery?
yeah. Well, and well, yeah, I guess so. I guess so. Well, when we dig at these historical sites, we usually find, ancient remains and things of that
They have
nature.
they have been found in mounds.
Okay. Okay.
So
Educate me on this. I would love to learn more about this. So these mounds, where are we talking about?
Mark would know better than I, but I think who was it? if Mark's still around. A friend of his wrote a great book on giants that did cover the giants in this country, and his name I just can't remember now, but he wrote a great book on giants. And they were here. They were definitely here. They find the bones in South America. They find them all over the world. It's not like they were just here. They were all over. And I believe, I mean, if you look at the Bible, there were giant wars in the Old Testament all over the place. I'm not sure I buy quite that, but it sounds good. But as far as the bones go, they have been discovered all over the world. It's not that it's one or two here; it's a lot.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. And I think what I'm more so saying is that, like, if I go outside today, there's 8 billion humans currently on the planet. I can go outside, a week, 2 weeks in a row, and not ever see a human being over 6'4", 6'3", even though we know there are a lot of humans out there that are high or taller than that. And I guess what I'm saying more so is that it's just the number of beings that are going to be that tall are going to be a lot fewer than what you call average or normal size, right? So that they would exist for sure. It's just that they exist in smaller numbers. Therefore, you're not going to just
Well,
find where you look.
humanity has gotten smaller. Also, we are shrinking,
Mm.
and so I know when was it North Korea? I think it was either Korea or China. But when the new guy came into power, it was North or South Korea. They had a picture of all of his soldiers lined up against a fence, and it was incredible. It was soldiers, like hundreds of them, and then whoops, giant, and then whoops, whoops. So even they exist today. They're still out there. Those genes are still within all of our DNA.
Yeah,
So it was a part of our culture at some point in time
yeah,
that got bred out.
yeah. And maybe I think I think what it is like the term or word giants just has this stigma on it. When you think of giants, you think of like a one-eyed something with the huge club, and you know
Yeah.
what I mean, the things they show in pop culture and TV, when really it's just taller human beings, right?
That's interesting because in the Bible, the giants are all extremely intelligent. So I don't know where the stupid giant came from
Yeah,
because the giants that have been here, that have been parts of tribes of Indians, um, have been leaders, and so I think they were definitely a race that died out, but they were here, especially the Nevada ones. It was a number, maybe 8 or 10 that were chased into a cave, and then they burned everything in the front of the cave, so they all suffocated, and then the bat guano covered them up for hundreds and hundreds of years, and their bodies were discovered when they started to mine the bat guano. They found the arrows, they found the bones, and they found the skulls with red hair on them.
wow. And we have about 30 seconds before we go to break. I have to get into giants. It's the thing that I've had on the back burner. So it's just interesting to talk through it and realize that these aren't going to be these separate sort of things. They're going to actually be part of the human bloodline, but just as you said, mutations. So what we're going to do is go ahead and take a break real quick, top of the hour. We'll be back.
Conversations
Talking
that
more
move the
giants
needle.
and who knows what else.
Into After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio. You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, we're clear. And Barbara, we're off camera for the next 5
Okay, on my website, There's a huge section on giants.
Okay, I'll mark that down. I'm gonna have to check it out. A lot of good stuff. We'll be back here, guys. Don't you go anywhere. See you in a minute. right, everybody. Smooth grooves right there on the After Hours Radio Show. And we are back from radio here in about 20 seconds. So this is hour 2. This is where you get your questions ready. Make sure you put them in caps. That way we can pose them at the end of this hour. 10 seconds. And here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. With me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We are back with our guest, Barbara Delong. We've been talking secrets of the stone. We've been talking giants. We're going to get into some UFOs and some other things here. If you missed any of our conversation tonight, make sure you hop in the archive. It's online. It's absolutely free. It's youtube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. We go ahead and get ready to jump right back into the conversation. And we were finishing up on giants there. And, like I said, you look around, basketball players, the giants, these are 10, almost 8-9 foot individuals. And, so we know that definitely it's part of the bloodline. And I just now have a different perspective of it because the topic, once again, on the surface of it, when you say giants, and if you haven't really researched it, then you envision what it is that they've shown you on television and shown you in books, things of that nature. So, which is a disservice at the end of the day, right? So it's good when we can have someone like yourself come on and kind of clear that up.
Well, I mentioned the book on giants, and Jason Jarrell wrote a book on giants that is fabulous, and I put the link in our private chat. So, but
okay.
But going back to giants, and you said we were going to kind of go over to about before Roswell, 22,238 BCE. Was the first era of the Mesoamerican long count calendar. It begins founded by giants who came to Earth from elsewhere.
Wow, and that's the Nephilim, right? Is that what that is?
No.
Because I thought you said Nephilim were supposedly these giants, or
Nephilim were the giants. They were the prodigy of the fallen angels and earth women. Yeah, but that's biblically speaking, and there's not any physical evidence to support that theory.
Okay. And BCE, to clear that up, what does BCE stand for everyone?
Before the current era.
Okay, before current era. Jerry Carter he's asking, is that before BC, or is that all in one thing?
Same thing.
Yeah.
BC, okay. It used to be before Christ, but then they changed it to current era.
Education. Love it. Okay, so yeah, giants, and that'll be something great to kind of come back on, because that what I want to do there is I'll be able to kind of look into the information you have on your website, then hopefully bring you back on as a guest, and we'll just do a show around giants. I think that would be fantastic. And awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I was blown away with this before Roswell stuff, because I talked to Mark about it in the background, and it's like before Roswell, and I didn't really catch the full meaning until I actually looked at the book, and then I'm like, oh wow, okay, this is pretty deep. So if you wouldn't mind talking to everybody, explaining what the book is, and maybe we can even read some of the stuff out of here.
Ken Godsword, who I wrote. Well, neither Ken Godsword nor I wrote this book. This book was all on Patrick's website. And when Patrick passed away, I wasn't able to keep his website and my website going. So I made sure that everything that was on his website was either in one of his 3 books, or I took it and put it onto my website. And this material, the UFO material, was one of those areas. And so Ken called me and asked if he could use the material from my website. And I said, absolutely. And he called me again a week later, said, hey, would you like to write it with me? And I said, well, I thought, and I realized it's already written. Sure, be happy to. And so he divided a lot of the material into different sections, different periods, and he wrote a paragraph, and I wrote a paragraph before each of the sections. And he wrote the summation, and I wrote the conclusion. And the book was written. And I have to admit, I've read through it 5, 6 times. And I'm surprised every time I read through it. It's all newspaper articles that this material was in the newspaper. Their articles or their reports of history that have made the history books. None of it is fabrication. None of it is, make believe. It's all been out there, and Patrick had brought it together, and Ken made it readable. I jokingly have said it's a great bathroom book. You can open it anywhere and enjoy yourself for a bit and then close it up and open it the next time you visit. It has great material in it. And the thing that I love about it is that prior to 1947, UFOs were very common. Everybody accepted them. It was no big deal. I saw one of those silver things in the sky and I was milking the cows, and, that was it. After 1947, we were made to be afraid of UFOs. The government scared us. There were books like Communion out there that scared us. We became terrified of something we didn't understand. Prior to 47, no big deal. So it begs the question, why were we made to fear something we didn't understand?
Yeah, yeah. And I look at Roswell as the official start of the government cover up in the suppression of UFO information as it pertains to the government
Absolutely.
from that moment going forward. And it's just been the same thing day after day after day, year after year after year. And here we are still trying to get answers on something that was already prevalent and present before Roswell. No pun
For
intended.
thousands of years.
Yeah, and here's the thing. This is what's so beautiful about this, Barbara. And for everybody out there, and believe I'm not just saying this. This is something that I think each one of you should have in your possession. And I got to give a shout out to Patrick for this. I'm sure this is exactly what he wanted you to do with this information. And it is so awesome. And I always applaud individuals who curate information like this because it's so nicely packaged.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to blow your mind, guys, what is in here. We're going to read some of the stuff. Is that okay if we read some of the
Oh, sure.
things? Okay.
And there is even more material on my website because I carried it up to the year 2000. So there's a lot more material on my barbaradelong.com. More UFO stuff on there.
I want to bring the picture of the book up here, guys, and it's on Amazon. Make sure, and I'm so serious, if you have any other UFO books in your possession, make sure this one is one that you get because it is full of information. And here's the thing. Like we knew that UFOs had been around since way before Roswell. I think everybody understood that. I think if I were to ask anyone out there in the audience right now to name some incidents that happened before Roswell, it's going to be the Kenneth Arnold, is going to be the Italy UFO with around the Hitler time frame, and it's going to be a couple of things that people know, but you are going to be blown away to know that in 1947, the year Roswell happened, there were so many other incidents that
Oh,
led
yeah.
up to it. And when you look at it as a whole, it's like this was a whole flap. This wasn't just Roswell happened. This is a flap across the globe in 1947. And we could just focus on 1947 because you guys go back even further. I think, how far do you end up going back in the
The,
book?
the last date is 270,000 BCE.
Guys, it is so real. And I'm gonna read a couple just things out of here, right? Because you guys all know Roswell. And I was just going through there. I was like, okay, 1947. Oh, okay, there were a couple. Okay, there were a few. I'm like, and I'm on like UFO incident number 20 in 1947. I'm like, I had no clue that they had all this going on. So let's see. Let me go ahead and just pull one out here. And 1947, obviously this is the one, and we'll start here because everybody knows this one. June 24th, 1947, Mount Rainier, Washington. 2 weeks before the Roswell story broke, Kenneth Arnold was on an aerial search for a crashed C-46 Marine transport plane when he saw 9 objects flying in formation. He estimated their speed at 1,300 to 1,700 miles per hour, distance at 23 miles, and length of formation to be 5 miles. Also in the air at the time was a DC-4, which Arnold used as a point of reference to estimate the size of the individual discs. He estimated the size as 2/3 the size of a DC-4. This sighting attracted significant media attention and public interest. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, I know about that one. Yeah, here we go. This is one I didn't know about. 1947, White Sands, New Mexico. C.J. Zahn, stationed at White Sands Proving Ground in New Mexico, watched a huge silver circular disc at a height of 10,000 feet above the installation. This sighting was just days after Kenneth Arnold's sighting. Which one for you is like your favorite sighting out of them all, or just one of the more memorable ones for you?
Aurora, Texas in 18 something.
1897, I think.
Yeah, a UFO crashed in Aurora, Texas, knocked over a windmill and crashed and burned. And there was well, it wasn't a survivor. The people went to the site. They found the pilot, who was a very small man, and they had a funeral for him, and they buried him. And in the 50s, the government went and wanted to exhume the body because it was an alien, and the people there refused to tell them where the site was. They wanted him to rest in peace.
Yes, I remember. I was familiar with that. Is that the one where they called it an airship or something like that? I think
Yeah,
they
they
yeah.
called it an airship. I think though, and it was World War I, and I can't give you the right date, but it was the first time a UFO had been shot down. Are you familiar with what that is?
Which one is that? Where the UFO shot down? I think I read that, but which
Do you
one
know
was that?
do you know who shot the first UFO down?
No.
The Red Baron.
Wow.
The real Red Baron.
Yeah, yeah.
He was the first pilot to shoot a UFO down, and it crashed, and the pilots ran into the forest and were never seen again.
I would love to read that one. There's a couple that in here that stood out to me. There was oh gosh, there's one in here. Let's see. There was one I just had it checked here with described it like a swarm of bees. Let me see here. Just so many in here. Let me see. October 14, 1947, 11 miles northeast of Cave Creek, Arizona, noon, Mountain Daylight Time. Witnesses Air Force fighter pilot J.L. Clark, civilian pilot Anderson, third man, watched 45 to 60 seconds while one 3-foot flying wing-shaped object, which looked black against the white clouds and red against the blue sky, flew straight at an estimated 380 miles at 8 to 10,000 feet from northwest to southeast. That's 1947 as well. July 6, 1947, Fairfield, Sassoon, which is kind of close to where I used to live in Northern California. Daytime witness, Army Air Force Captain and Mrs. James Berniston watched for 1 minute while one object having no wings or tail, sounds like a tic tac, rolled from side to side 3 times, then flew away very fast to the southeast. This one, this one sounds like my UFO sighting, July 29, 1947, Hamilton Air Base, California, 2:50 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Witnesses, Assistant Base Operations Officer Captain William Ryard, ex-Air Force B-29 pilot Ward Stewart, watched for unknown length of time while 2 round, shiny white objects with estimated 15 to 25 foot diameters flew 3 to 4 times the apparent speed of the P-80. Also in sight, one object flew straight and level, the other weaved from side to side like an escort fighter. Yeah, there's also
No, wait, page 11,
11?
Antarctica. Page 11,
Yes.
Antarctica,
Okay.
Operation High Jump.
1946, Antarctica. In August 1946, the United States Navy sent a fleet of 13 ships, 33 aircraft, and 4,700 men to occupy Antarctica under the leadership of Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Ostensibly, the mission, named Operation High Jump, was for scientific research, which seemed like a highly dubious priority for the Navy amidst the aftermath and ongoing fortifications following World War II. By the time the top secret mission was called off ahead of schedule in February 1947, Admiral Byrd himself admitted publicly that the mission was in fact no research mission, but that the fleet had been sent ready for combat and did in fact engage in aerial combat against an enemy with vastly superior flight technology. Byrd warned the press that the United States should adopt measures of protection against the possibility of an invasion of the country by hostile planes coming from the polar regions, and that the United States could be attacked by planes flying over one or both poles, and that the time has ended when we were able to take refuge in our isolation and rely on the certainty that the distances, the oceans, and the poles were a guarantee of safety. There's another one here where they mention anomalous or aerial phenomena, and a lot of people feel like UAP is just this new term or something that's made up, and this was something that was talked about in the 40s.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
recall? Do you recall which incident that was?
No.
Thumb through here and see if I can find it. But I think that's an important one too, because they is definitely one that people feel like they just came up with this term recently, and it's just
Well,
not.
one of the reasons Admiral Byrd talked the government into sending Operation High Jump was because he had been into Middle Earth that had flying saucers with swastikas on them. And his diary talks about the whole interlude. They were attacked by saucers and they lost. Admiral Byrd came back with his tail between his legs, so to speak.
Wow, you have the Battle of Los Angeles listed in here.
Yes, and the Battle of Los Angeles was incredible. Patrick and I had a man on our show who was a child at the time, and he remembers the sirens running and the searchlights in the air, and he remembers seeing the ships and how that our munitions bounced off of them, and there was a lot of collateral damage, but it was all from our munitions hitting the force field or whatever was protecting them and falling onto the beaches. And the next day, the government paid the local kids for every piece of shrapnel and whatever that they could find on the beaches.
Wow. And we're going back. This is 1927 right here. I'm about to read. Sausalito, California. Writer Ella Young said that while sitting outside the Madrona Hotel, she saw a cigar-shaped craft shoot out of a cloud beyond the bay and across the sky towards Tam- Tamal Pass. Okay, I said that wrong, I'm sure. It was not shaped like any other airship she knew. It was long and slender, of yellow color, and traveling at great speed. It seemed to progress by alternately contracting and elongating its body. What do you call that? Warping in a lot of the descriptions of things that we currently see today. And this is only page 1927. It's page 24. This book is over 100 pages. And we're talking about sighting after sighting after sighting after sighting after sighting for 100 pages. It just shows you that this is a regular thing. Where was
Oh
he? How
yeah.
did he curate this all this data?
He researched it. And he spent years researching stuff on UFOs. He had a photographic memory, which was frustrating as daylights to live with, um, because he remembered everything, and he could quote you chapter and verse of anything. I mean, he was a biblical theologian, but on top of that, the UFOs really fascinated him. And the material that he read, he would give you latitude and longitude. It was amazing.
What do you think is the reason? So the day of Roswell, so they say the crash is they retrieved the crash disc. The
Yes,
next day they come right back and say, "Oh, it wasn't that. It was actually a weather balloon." Why do you think they began the cover up at that point? What do you think? Did you think they saw something that made them do this, or what do you think?
I can only give you what my opinion is.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't Patrick's. Um, there was a survivor, and it did not last. I don't know how long the survivor lasted, but they did have a survivor, and they didn't want to admit that they had an extraterrestrial in their possession. And so they put out the story and they stood by it. Um, there are a lot of articles that have since been written that do name the extraterrestrial and that he did help to um, reverse uh, understand a lot of the technology.
Mm-hmm.
But he died finally. I don't know how many years he lived, but I do know that there was a survivor, and one of the reasons they wanted to make light of it, so to speak, is because they didn't want to admit that they actually had an extraterrestrial in their possession. And I think that they were wrong, because I think that humanity as a whole would have been fascinated and wouldn't have been terrified, but would have wanted to know about the culture where this person came from, because he was, I mean, they were humanoid-ish enough so that you wouldn't be frightened. So there was no point in hiding the fact that they actually had an extraterrestrial who was alive for a while.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we're going to go ahead and take our last break of the night. With that being said, because, yeah, may have been a surviving entity on that crash in Roswell, but you know how we are. We put everything in the cage and we examine things. That's just who we are as human beings. Sad but true. We're going to come back right after the break with Barbara Delong. You guys don't go anywhere. See you in just a minute. All right, we are clear. We are clear. And this is the last break. We are still live on YouTube. But if you need to do anything, water or anything, definitely this is the
Got
time
my
to.
caffeine.
You got it? Good.
Yep.
I got mine too, right over here, right off camera. I'll take a drink. Why not? Because I try not to during shows. Trying to, I'll wait until we go off camera, and then I'll have my little drink. But why not? I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna live a little bit.
My voice gets very hoarse this late at night, so I drink.
Well, you're doing fantastic, and it's totally awesome. And like I said, Mark Eddy strikes again, knocks another one out the park, and yeah, very interesting. And like I said, the book and guys, I'm because one of the rules that we really have here on Space Out Radio is we don't book guests because some guests just want to come on. I could probably name a couple just come on to sell a book, right? And it's like, okay, well, we don't do infomercials, and we're definitely going
Yeah.
to talk about the book. But this is like this is a book that I'm like, guys, you got to go get this book. Like, it has to be in your, like, if you care anything about the history of incidents and things that have occurred, like, this is every sighting that happened prior to Roswell that he could, I'm sure, locate is in this book.
Yeah. No, it is amazing. And I don't know how long he worked on that list. And a lot of the sightings and things like that deal with presidents and astronauts and stuff like that are on the website. I mean, there's a lot of material still there.
Yeah, oh man, it'd be so awesome. I'm sure with this you probably could have broken into well, you said you have other information on the website, so maybe you can
Yeah.
have a part 2 of this book. But I think this is so important, though. It really is important to the community, and especially for those who just coming in. Because one thing that I do, I have my own personal channel aside from what I do here, and on that channel, I do, in one of my shows, I do this segment called "Once Upon a Time in Ufology," and I go and I pick something historically, and we kind of go over that, and it's for the people that are just coming in. But now that you have this book out, oh, I can pick any one of these and kind of go over that with the audience, because it's all about education.
Oh,
some
yeah.
some people know, but some people are just coming in to learn. You know what I
Well,
mean?
Ken Godsword did a great job of putting it together the way he did. I mean, I give him great credit. And like I said, I've read through the book several times, and I'm always amazed. It's not like something that I've written, but it's an amazing collection of material.
Yeah. Yeah, and you did the right thing with it too, because the information could have sat on the website and just really not getting that circulation that
Yeah.
it needed. And this is exactly what needed to happen with that. It's similar to, I don't know if you're familiar with Preston Dennett. But Preston Dennett he's written like 30 books now. I think he's at like 35 or something now, but he's another one of those individuals that curates all this data and then puts it out in these books. So he's this is on par with something that Preston Dennett would do. So just really awesome. I was blown away when I started reading it. I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know about 90% of these.
Yeah.
Probably even more than that. Truthfully, there's so many that I'm hearing for the first time in there. Yeah, Simply Coco for sure. Great info. I have to get that book. No, you definitely have to. Like I said, go get the book. Okay.
It's
You
a good one.
gotta put it in it has to be there. Like, if you call yourself knowing anything about the history, then yeah, it's like, man, it's not even my book. And I'm sitting and I'm just like, I'm telling you, Go get the book. Let's see. Channel Warhorse, a true printing press sounds exciting. Yeah, you gotta do it, man. You definitely gotta do it. I promise. Let's see. I'd like a copy myself. It's right over on Amazon, guys. Actually, I think I can actually post the link here. Let me see since I have it up. Copy, paste. There you go. Click on that link and go get that book. We got about 8 seconds left here. Here we coming back. Everyone, welcome back. Space Out Radio after hour number 2. We're in the back half of the second hour. We have about 20 minutes left with our guest here. Time flies when you're having fun. We've had awesome conversations, well, a lot of knowledge, a lot of great information. If you missed any of it, definitely hop in the archive, youtube.com/Space Out Radio, as we go ahead and get back into talking about, before Roswell, The Secret History of UFOs by Ken Godsword and Barbara DeLong, who is our guest tonight. And we were just talking about some of the sightings or some of the cases that were listed in here. And like I said, this 100 and so pages of just sighting after sighting after sighting. I'm just going to spin the wheel and just point at one and pick it. And okay, here we go. 1936. This is in Spain. A sighting in the midst of the Spanish Civil War. English novelist and former soldier Valentine Williams and 2 others were driving from General Franco's headquarters to Burgos to Biarritz, France. The sighting occurred at 4:18 p.m. in the Basque province, about 75 miles from San Sebastian. Williams' companions gasped in amazement. He turned to see what he thought was a flare or trace ground on a course at right angles to the road, heading northward at an amazing velocity. Williams later described it as like a streamer of white smoke. As it went, it burst into a bright orange flame. There was no sound or explosion. When they reached Biarritz, they told their story. Tom Dupree from the British consulate at Hendaye said he had been at San Sebastian, about 30 miles west, at the same time of the day and had seen the same object. This UFO could have been a particularly large fireball, burning brightly enough to be visible by daylight. However, the accounts give the impression that the object was traveling parallel to the ground, not falling towards the earth. So
How
even in
about
that, he says that was potentially a fireball, maybe not a UFO. So then you have some of that in there, which is good for context. So
well, go to page 97, 329 BCE.
97. Okay. Let's see. Flipping through here. Yep, 60s. 81. Okay, you said 97?
Page 97, 329 BCE, top of the page.
Okay, guys, this is 329 BCE in Persia. Alexander the Great records 2 great silver shields spitting fire around the rims in the sky that dove repeatedly at his army as they were attempting a river crossing. The action so panicked his elephants, horses, and men they had to abandon the river crossing until the following day. Wow. That's Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
537 BC. Persia, a green-skinned humanoid wearing a loose garment over his metallic fitted jumpsuit appears to the Hebrew prophet Daniel. Wow.
Yeah, it goes on and on and on.
And this is so and this one is because I think this one is what is that for the oh my gosh, it'll come to me. So 3534 BCE India. According to the Bhagavad Gita, flying warships burned and destroyed an entire city and its inhabitants before returning to the hand of Vishnu. And it's the Vimanas. Am I saying
Va-
that right?
Vamana.
Yes. And so they have those stories, and I think that's like 7,000 years back. So that's in the history, and I think that's kind of what they were talking about there. Um, let's see if I can find another. Let's see. It's just amazing. I mean, you can, and I'm literally just spinning the wheel here and just picking one here, and I'm gonna pick another one for you guys here. Um, okay, 1905, Cherbourg, France. Sighting of an oval, reddish colored object that hung in the sky over this northern French port for several days. It was not in the position of the planet Venus and was not reported from other towns.
Huh. Okay. Page 87, 840. This is one of my favorites.
All right, page 87, 840. Lyons, France. As he was coming out of the cathedral, Agabard, bishop of Lyons, saw a mob stoning three men and a woman. Apparently, they had been seen descending in an airship and claimed to be returning to Earth after having been kidnapped by celestial beings who showed them wonders. At the time, France had a law imposing penalties against creatures that travel on aerial ships. The bishop managed to successfully save the lives of these particular four. This strange law was ratified by at least three French kings: King Pepin the Short, Charlemagne, and Louis the First.
Can you
Wow!
believe that? I
Wow!
mean,
That is insane. That is insane.
it
And
is.
it's just the thing about it is that it's so similar to I talk to experiencers all the time, and it's just like it's just a different it's the same story, different time, and so you can see the likeness of these situations, and it's like it's the same thing. It's been going on this entire time, and how can the government want to hide that from us? That's my thing. How, like,
Well, what
why?
gets me is all of these things are official reports prior to 1947. After 47, they all became frightening. But prior, I mean, we're talking cave drawings, we're talking, my goodness, look at the Nazca lines. There's even a friendly alien there waving at the sky. I mean, they've been around forever.
Yeah, yeah, they have, and man, so let me ask you this, and because I asked everybody this, and I just wanted to get your opinion on this. Recently, just this year, we had these drone sightings.
Yeah.
What was your opinion on those? What did you think those were?
Oh, they're
And
all ours.
okay, so you think they're all ours? You
Oh,
don't think
yeah. Oh, yeah.
anything?
Well, when I say ours, it's either Germany, Russia, Japan, China, us, who knows else. I mean, until drones became common knowledge here, there weren't any sightings of them. Now they're all over the place. If extraterrestrials had had them forever, we would have had them, those sightings forever. But they haven't been out there. The only drone that I know of historically that I would buy as a drone is the Rendlesham Field, the Rendlesham Forest sighting.
Mm.
And that was a drone from the future. That was a drone that had come through time.
Yeah, you make a you make a great point actually with that. When you look historically, especially going through this, and I guess that's another way to be able to do that is, and this is crazy because I always say this on this show. I always say history is a great judge of the present, or a way to kind of validate what we're seeing in the present is by looking historically on things that we have cataloged and data that we've captured that we know, and that's exactly what you're saying there, and that makes total sense because I say it all the time. But so I think that's another way that this book could be used is is a just a way to validate the things that happen now, because I didn't think about that, right? Drones, if these would be extraterrestrial, then we should have some sort of similarity to something that happened in the
They,
past. But
they only became popular and annoying when they became commercially available to everyone.
yeah, one thing that I am noticing, especially as I was going through and looking at a lot of these sightings in this book here, is that I don't think that, the classic shape is not the disc. And we know how the flying saucer term became because of Kenneth
Yeah,
Arnold, but it seems like that isn't the prevalent shape that historically has been there. It's been these spheres. It's been these round objects, silver, some
mhm.
white, and and I say that because we have the footage from the most recent whistleblower, Jake Barber, and it's an egg, and it's people call it an egg. It's an egg-shaped object, and it's white. But historically, and I've said this to people, that's the shape that gets reported a lot if you go back in history.
Yeah.
And in this book, it comes up so many different times, but people look at it, they don't think about it that way. They think, okay, it's not a disc, it's not one of these things that we've been led to believe are the classic shapes, but it's like, no, the egg shape is the classic shape.
Well, also the cigar shape. I found it interesting that the cigar shape appeared in lots of different places, and then there was that asteroid that was supposed to hit us, that is now not going to. That they thought was a ship or a spaceship from outside of our galaxy that was traveling, and it looks exactly like a cigar.
You mean the one that they most recently found, or you mean the Oumuamua?
Oumuamua.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. And I remember when he first said that, when he first said that it was an alien crab, then he kind of came out of left field with that. But when you look historically and you look at the shape, that would be the shape that has been described historically. And I think that's definitely where this book is going to be able to be used as that sort of tool, to be able to say, okay, do you think you saw this? Look in the book. Did it come up in the book? Because historically, this is what's been showing up, and
Yeah.
there's likely only these few different type of craft that we keep seeing. And it validates my sighting because I saw 47 of these spherish sort of objects that disappeared in the thin air, and they're
Well,
exactly what you list here in the book.
and if you look at it and you realize that, okay, so every year there's a new model. We have different models of cars all the time. Why not different models of UFOs?
I thought about that. I mean, and I think that can account for some of the other shapes, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, why not, right? Why not? Why not? I guess it makes sense. Let me make sure because I'll end up talking till it's time to go. Zen Zapper wants to know if aliens want nothing to do with this, why so many abductions slash UFO sightings? If you have any opinion on this question.
I do. I feel, and this my thought, my theory does not apply to Betty and Barney Hill because I think that was an abduction. But I think 85% of abductions have been brought out through hypnosis, which is very suggestive. And I'm not sure I buy they were actually abducted. I know there are people that have objects that have been implanted in their skin and stuff like that. And I will say that most probably in some cases was an actual abduction, but what's been planted in them is so insignificant that it doesn't make any sense. I think that Hollywood has done us a disservice, and I think a lot of the abductions that have been called abductions are not abductions. They're missed time. They're psychologically imposed. They're holographically um, suggested, and people who are very suggestible can be told, you know, that they were abducted, and they'll believe it and they'll go with it. And the more you say something, the more you convince yourself it's real, even if it's not. I'm not saying they're lying. I'm saying that they have been something has been suggested to them and they want to believe it so much they actually do.
It's good to have an outlook like that, right? Because and we talk about that too. I mean, you should, be very critical of the information, process it, vet it, and form your opinion. And to go along with that, someone had posted, Roger Murray, Barbara, what is your opinion on the Travis Walton abduction specifically?
Oh, I believe he was abducted. I
Okay.
believe oh, come on. He and all of his friends passed lie detector tests. He was emaciated when they found him after he was returned. I do believe that that was a verifiable abduction. You know, you look at the Billy Meyer material too. Um, I think that there's great validity in Billy Meyer's material. So I do believe there have been abductions, but I would say 75, 80% of them are implanted memories that have been implanted into people rather than the reality of what they experienced.
Okay.
And our government has from time to time abducted people and convinced them that they were aliens.
I keep hearing that. I'm not fully there with that. I mean, I know there's so many different cases and stories of that, but I always ask the question like, for what? Like, why? Why
to
would
make a to make us fearful.
okay. Okay.
Fear
Okay.
sells. Fear sells.
Okay. Lulu Bell is asking, could UFOs possibly be demons?
Um, I don't believe in demons.
Okay.
So no. I think that as humans, we have powerful brains, and we can holographically produce anything we want to if we believe enough, and we know how to use the power that we have within us. I don't believe in demons.
Okay.
I'd have to see one to believe it.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair enough. Woo Riders DG is asking, your thoughts on secret space program.
Well, there is a secret space program. There's no doubt about it. And I do believe that our Space Corps was created to be able to ease the way into coming into um, connection and merging with the secret space program at some point in time. It stands a good chance of it within the next 10 or 12 years.
Yeah, I'm with the secret space program too. It's just too many things we launch off this planet, and they always say, "Oh, they tested a missile. They were testing this." I'm like, I don't know what was actually on that rocket
If
that you sent out into orbit.
if you look at it and think logically, if a species is evolved enough to go through portals, they wouldn't go into a tin can and fly for years out in space with canned goods. They just wouldn't do it. so that what we're looking at is interdimensional travel, which takes a breath. So I don't believe at all in what we have been fed or what science fiction has presented us with. I think that we are being led down a pathway that is all lies. At some point, the truth will come out.
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. We think of travel as getting in a vehicle, going from this point to that point,
Yeah.
and the travel that it takes to get there. When you could potentially zap into in wormholes and things, just things that we haven't really uncovered yet as far as methods of travel. So I'm with you there. And we have one more here, which is Roger Murray. He's actually referring to a date, Barbara DeLong, Great UFO War of 1566, Italy. And guess what? I think I found it right here, so we'll go ahead and read it.
Okay.
I do have 1566, Basel, Switzerland. Many black spheres were seen moving through the sky at great speed at around sunrise. August 7th is close to the peak of perhaps the largest meteor shower of the year, the Perseid, which can be very spectacular. It is tempting to try to link the Basel phenomenon with meteors, but is unlikely that even the Perseid, and I know I'm saying that wrong, would produce enough rocks large enough to be seen as dark objects. Furthermore, large meteorites are generally observed as balls of fire rather than dark objects due to the heat generated upon entering the atmosphere. So that's for you, Roger Murray. You threw out. He's our historian. He always has knowledge for us here, and so that date corresponded to that entry that I just read for you, Roger Murray. That one's for you. If you want to know about anything else, you guys got to go get the book. I recommend that you do it, and you do it soon, and you got to put it in your collection for sure. And we have about a minute. We have about 2 minutes left, and I want to make sure that everybody knows where to find you.
I'm at barbaradelong.com. And on my website, there's a link to the YouTube channel, which is also Barbara DeLong. And it's a teaching website. It's a spiritual website. And while we haven't hit the spiritual stuff, that's my playground. And I think that doing podcasting has been one of the most exciting things I've ever done, and it keeps opening up new doors for me. So I am absolutely thrilled that you had me on and gave me the chance to talk about Before Roswell, because it is near and dear to my heart, of course. But we recently moved into doing StreamYard and Podbean as well. So we're kind of growing and stretching, just like you are.
Yes, and I would love to have you back, and we have to definitely do this. And actually, there's a buzzer beater question. So if you could answer this in 30 seconds, Leacham, the spicy lizard, is saying, other than actual remains in DNA, what is your opinion is the best evidence of giants, and do you think they are still some around?
We're still talking about them thousands of years later. They're in the Bible. Through history, they have entered into every aspect of our lives. And if they hadn't been real, they wouldn't still be talked about.
That is awesome. A great way to end the conversation tonight. It has been so awesome, Barbara. Like I said, once again, Mark Eddy swings for the fences and brings on someone that moves the needle. That's so important to me. As I tell everyone at the end of the conversation, I like people to leave with more than they came in with. And I think you did that tonight, Barbara. So thanks so much. I'll be in contact with you. You have a great rest of your night, and you take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
All right, guys, I'll be right back right after this break.
Conversations that move the needle.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio. You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
right, clear, fantastic guest, guys. I'll be back right after this break with hour 3. Don't go anywhere. It's going to be action packed. See you soon. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio after hour number 3. Me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We're coming back for radio here in about 5 seconds. Let's go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio after hour number 3. We just had a great guest, Barbara Delong. Oh my gosh, guys, if you missed any of the conversation, jump in archive, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Awesome stuff as we get ready to jump into this last hour. We have Steve Stockton, Tales Untold, Missing Person Mysteries, as well as Drew Danke with After Hours Wrap Up, and then some UFO and weird news to go ahead and kick off and end off the night as we get ready to go ahead and jump into Steve Stockton, Tales Untold, Missing Person Mysteries. And like we say, every single show is just awesome to have Steve be a part of this show. And we are going to jump right on into it right now. And here we go.
Welcome to Tales Untold and Missing Persons Mysteries on Spaced Out Radio's After Hours. My name is Steve Stockton, and I'm here to take you on a journey of mysteries, legends, and true stories. Come, join me on this strange adventure of Tales Untold and Missing Person Mysteries. Conrad Whitlock. Conrad Whitlock was 72 years old at the time of his disappearance on July 28, 2019. He vanished under mysterious circumstances after telling his wife that night at around 8:30 in the evening, right before he retired for the night and went to bed, that he wouldn't see her in the morning because he had to go and get some tests done early. Conrad had recently been suffering from headaches and was presumably going to get it checked out. Just before 3 a.m. on the 29th, the E-tag on Conrad's BMW was detected on the Marunda Highway on the way to Victoria's High Country. 3 hours later, he drove through the entrance gate at the Mount Buller Resort, which was witnessed by several other motorists who all claimed to have seen Conrad himself behind the wheel. Approximately 7 hours after he left his home in the middle of the night, seemingly with no destination or reason in mind, at 10 a.m., his car was found abandoned on the side of the road, and Conrad had seemingly vanished right into the ether. He hasn't been seen or heard from since. When she woke in the morning and couldn't get a hold of her husband, Conrad's wife, Mandy, called the police and expressed her concerns to them. Then they tracked his phone to Mount Buller, and there his car would be found abandoned and empty, with the keys still in the ignition. After what was described as an exhaustive 6-day search effort conducted to try and locate the missing elderly man, who up till now had shown no signs of dementia or other mental illness, there seemed to be no rhyme or reason why he left his home when he did or drove the route he did, just to end up abandoning his car haphazardly parked on the side of this isolated road. The rescue effort included police, Mount Buller search and rescue specialists, forestry workers, a dog squad, and an air wing. Dozens of searchers and volunteers combed the area where Mr. Whitlock's BMW was found, but it was all to no avail, as no other trace of him has ever been found. The overnight temperatures in the area at that time were dropping to -3 degrees Celsius or 37.4 degrees Fahrenheit, and it had started to snow. It's believed he had no provisions with him at all and was definitely not equipped for such harsh weather. The coroner stated that, because of certain things going on in the world at that time, the pandemic, NSW cadaver dogs weren't able to join the search until months after Conrad had initially gone missing. Peter Towner, a former Victoria police detective who worked on the case, said at the time, "It was a long delay, and that, I think, has compounded the fact that we didn't find him. I don't think we'll ever find him." Coroner Parisa Spanos asked Mr. Towner, "We're about 15 months after the event. Do you know if the cadaver dogs would be expected to find a trace?" His response was, "They were quite confident that if he was there, they would have found him. I wouldn't say they were unsuccessful. They just didn't find him. He wasn't where they searched." It was later discovered that just a few days before he disappeared seemingly into thin air, Conrad was participating in a practice session at a racetrack with his Mustang when he crashed into a barrier. Now, it's alleged that he didn't hit his head, but later witnesses came forward and said that he had a large bruise on his forehead after the incident. This is when his wife says he first started complaining of severe headaches. It was also uncovered by investigators that, right before he vanished, Mr. Whitlock had been searching on his computer for things like amnesia and memory loss. The lapsed Scientologist was even searching about his previous religion with a search of the word Scientology. Mr. Tober believes Conrad's head injuries could be the cause of his disappearance and believes he could have become confused and disoriented when he woke up around 3 a.m. and decided to get into his car for whatever reason and go for a drive. He stated, "My personal opinion is the bang on his head manifested in his mind that he had an underlying serious brain embolism or something like that." Conrad was also recently prescribed what was referred to as a powerful painkiller, which was never found and was presumably on his person when he went missing. The investigators say that all this combined with high altitudes, freezing cold temperatures, and the fact that he hadn't eaten would definitely account for why he most likely succumbed to the elements. Mr. Towner, who now works for the Victoria Police but in the capacity as a public servant since retiring, also stated you could simply slide under a log, under a fern, and you could literally walk straight over top of him and not know there was a body there. He also states he became drowsy and disoriented, and I simply believe he wandered off from that car and met his demise, whether he's just slipped and fallen. Without any other evidence, I have to believe that he's there somewhere. Next up, Niels Becker. 39-year-old Niels Becker, who was described by those who knew him best as strong, fit, and resilient, prepared for months to embark on a 5-day solo hike in the Alpine National Park. On October 24, 2019, Niels left Upper Jameson Hut to start his journey. It seems as though Niels was right on course to complete his 5-day hike, as on October 26th, he messaged some family members from Vallejo Gatner Hut to tell them he was heading to Mount Sterling and then heading back to his vehicle on the 29th as planned. He never made it back, though, and that's where the mystery begins. Niels was reported as missing after his family hadn't heard from him in 2 weeks, as they had possibly thought he simply needed more time. Being as he was usually very independent and an avid outdoorsman, especially when it came to hiking, they weren't at first concerned. Once the report was made, though, a group of about 70 volunteers, including the police, a dog squad, air wing, bush search and rescue, state emergency service, and the Department of Environment, searched for him around the clock, looking for Niels in, near, and around the location where he said he would have been hiking, which was Victoria's northeast. They searched the entire week until the weekend, when the search was scaled back significantly, mainly due to the temperatures in the bush at night. Senior Sergeant Damian Keegan said authorities were still appealing to the public for information. Like with any of those searches, we always strive to return loved ones back to their family, he says. We'll continue on with that view, and then at some stage we'll be able to find Niels and be able to give some closure to the family. Senior Sergeant Keegan said the police had a few theories as to what could have possibly happened to Niels Becker. The theories mainly dealt with the freezing cold overnight temperatures and the fact that Niels could have walked out of the search area and succumbed to hypothermia and therefore never been found. This is very likely because nobody was sure which route he was taking to get back to his car. Niels' parents, Johanna and Piers Becker, said their son had meticulously planned the hike for an entire 6 months before heading out and chose the dates he did because he wanted to spend his 39th birthday walking in Victoria's high country. They said he'd been training by walking around Melbourne carrying a rucksack. They also talked about Niels having a high affinity for the high country and how he'd hiked it many times before with no issues or concerns. This was to be the longest hike he'd ever gone on alone, though. Niels loved writing and performing Christian music and lived at home with his parents. Last week, I was so optimistic, and my daughter said he'll come out with an epic story. But I think after Tuesday and yesterday, well, we're not so optimistic, Johanna Becker said. His father, Pierre, stated, he's a bit of an independent person. He writes a lot of poetry. A lot of the writing is about the high country around Mount Bueller. Niels' parents asked for anyone with any information to please come forward to the police, especially if they remember having had contact with a solo hiker in that specific or surrounding area. Next up is Warren Meyer. On the morning of March 23, 2008, 57-year-old Warren Meyer left his home to go for a simple hike to enjoy the new spring air. While no one is sure exactly which hike in the Yarra Ranges this very experienced hiker chose to take, there were only 2, with each one able to be completed in about 4 hours or so. Warren's wife kissed him and waved goodbye, expecting him to return in a little more than a 4-hour time frame. He had plans with his wife and some of their friends to meet for lunch that same day, and Warren was a reliable man who wasn't often late, especially without calling. This time was different, though, and when her husband was a no-call, no-show that day for the lunch engagement, she immediately knew something was wrong. Later in that afternoon, Warren's vehicle was found in the Dom Dom Saddle parking area. It seems as though this is where he parked it when he left for his hike that day. Warren Meyer ran a successful civil engineering consultancy business in Elwood, Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, and had no reason whatsoever to have disappeared of his own accord. He was happily married, and he and his wife had 2 children who they adored. He never got to meet his 2 grandchildren, as they were born after he had vanished. His wife believes he would be really enjoying his retirement right now and enjoying their life together had he not vanished off the face of the earth that fine spring day back in March of 2008. Warren's parents passed away, never having received any answers as to what happened to him. He simply walked into the woods for a hike one day and was never seen or heard from again, like so many of the missing people we talk about on this channel. After waiting years to finally have a ruling on how the case was handled and what avenues were taken to ascertain what could have happened to her husband, Ms. Myers received, unsurprisingly, according to her own words, a very unsatisfactory explanation. The inquest determined Warren's date of death was unidentified, his manner of death undetermined, and the place of death unknown. Unbelievable. There are many other factors and concerns the family have about how this case was handled, but to get into the minutiae of each and everything believed by the family to have been mishandled in Warren's disappearance might take away from one simple fact. The fact at the heart of the matter itself. Warren Myers simply vanished, and there's no information whatsoever to even allude to where he may have gone and what might have happened to him. So, as all these hikers continue to vanish, rumor and speculation run rampant through the surrounding towns. Is there someone taking people? Feral humans? Are there cryptids, known or unknown, that are responsible? Is it all or none of the above? Something else entirely? We might never know the answers, as the mountains and forests hold their secrets close. All we can do is continue to search, never giving up in our quest for finding the answers and perhaps bringing some peace of mind and possibly closure to the families of the victims.
Once again, Steve Stockton tells Untold Mr. Person Mystery. So glad to have him as part of the show here at Space Out Radio on the After Hours Radio Show, guys. We're going to go ahead and jump right on into it with Drew Banky and the After Hours wrap up. Let's go.
You're an irredeemable monster!
Come here, I'm going to eat you. Get in my belly.
Kick him in the north! Kick him in the north! Do it! Do it! Wolfman's gone north!
You're a monster!
Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap up. Drewski, my guy, how you doing?
Good, brother. Good. Great guest, huh?
Great freaking guest.
Interesting stuff. We haven't heard Giants. Don't hear Giants very often. So it was very interesting stuff.
And the perspective on that, and we can get into that as well, but just the whole Roswell, just the before Roswell. And it says it right there, before Roswell, but you don't think of literally what she has in this book. And it is like, I'm talking about going backwards, starting in Roswell, going backwards, just citing. When I was reading it, I was probably at 20 sightings, and I was still in 1947. Had no clue that much stuff happened that year, because all we know and hear about is Kenneth Arnold, and maybe I think there's one other one that a lot of people talk about, but so many other ones that happened the same year as Roswell.
Sure. You ever hear about George Washington? I think it was George Washington, or one of the early presidents. Yeah, there's all types of them, man. But they go back a while. But yeah, that I've never heard a compilation that detailed as that. You know, I've heard of ones before Roswell, but just a handful here and there. But yeah, that many is just, it's crazy. And the way she explains her theory on giants and all that stuff, like, it's possible, you know, it makes possible sense. I mean, when I lived down, when I was down with the Miccosukee tribe, one of the things that was talked about down there by one of their elders was about 7 generations ago, 7 generations ago, people lived over 1,000 years old, and this was passed down through like lineage, so like family lineage history, that the for one, the life expectancy of humans just 6 to 7 generations ago was up close to 1,000 years old, and trees went all the way into the clouds. This is verbatim what was told to me. The trees went all the way into the clouds.
Yeah. Some people are saying, and I've never, this is new to me, but some people are talking about, well, Devil's Tower. Devil's Tower is a petrified tree. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, it kind of makes sense because of the grooves on it, how it could be that. And I'm like, well, shit, if that's a petrified tree, that was one big ass tree, man.
Yeah.
You know,
You got to think redwoods, that
oh yeah,
maybe redwoods were one of the smaller trees, back in the day, and we're seeing the end of the redwoods, like, I don't know, they're becoming extinct. They're hard to grow. They don't grow very fast. But so the big ones that are here, that you see pictures of them all the time, just from like the 20s, the 1910, 1920, 1930s, when they were harvesting them. There were huge ones, like, now they got ones that you can drive like a car through, but back in the day they were 4 or 5 times that, just the pictures. So you keep dating back more and more and more and more. We're just talking about 100 years. 100 years ago, there were trees that people couldn't even imagine the size of. So you go back 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 1,000,000 years. Like, what's there was dinosaurs
all right.
walking this planet. Was the trees the same size? No. Like, I think the trees were probably congruent to the size of a dinosaur. And some of the dinosaurs we know from the fossils that we've recovered were huge. But Brontosaurus was what, 80, 90 feet tall from ground to the top of his nose. The long neck one, whatever it was called. But the point is, like, we're only seeing a small window of like creation. So we tend to base fact and everything around of like what we're seeing now, when we're not taking into account evolution of everything else. Everything else is evolving too, not just us.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's what I was saying to Barbara, because you had 60-foot lizards walking the planet, and then now you have miniature lizards walking the planet.
Right.
And so it could have scaled for humans as well. And just like you talk about, it makes more sense that, in a world where you have 60-foot lizards, that the trees were probably bigger, to scale with them as well. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, the other part of that was you just on the giant part, because the giants, like I was saying, it just, if you haven't really looked into it, you just are going off of what you hear in pop culture, what you've seen on TV, then you have a particular idea of what they want you to think a giant is. And it's this big, ogre sort of thing that maybe has an eye or two eyes, and carrying around a club or something like that. But really, in actuality, it's just a big human. It's just a big human. And we know we have big humans walking around right now, and they play in the NBA, and some of them play in the NFL. And these are just abnormally large humans. And that's why I was saying to her, like, you can walk around, as far as trying to give a reason why we're not finding these skeletons of these giants, prehistoric or giants. And it makes sense because you don't really see 6'8" people walking around every single day. They're here, and there's a lot of them, but you don't really see them. You know what I mean? And that would make sense why we probably aren't just finding giant bodies everywhere, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's I got a friend in Florida. His nickname is Tree. His real name is Matthew, but he's 7'3" and his nickname is Tree. So, and I've actually helped him. Because he's identified as that. When he goes out, like everyone always want to take a picture with him. Always how's the weather up there, stuff like that. So it's like uh he stands out in the crowd, and the way I explain it to him, like, lean into it and turn it into a blessing, instead of letting it be, something that brings you down. But um yeah, it's interesting that he has this gift, this unique gift of being really tall, and it's just it's turned into this thing for him. But there's, you know standing, I'm 6 foot, and standing next to him, I look very, I look short standing next to him. And I'm not normally the short person in the room. It's interesting to see pictures of us side to side. But there's a long history that we don't know about. I do agree with what the guest was talking about, that talk you guys were discussing the theory of humanity living a lot longer than we have. I think that's true. I think we're only just starting to see the beginning of it. What Barbara was talking about also with Bigfoot being extra dimensional, not so much physical, but extra dimensional, or energy being, or something, something like that. That's because people track them, and then they find evidence here and there, but then they seem to disappear into thin air. It's the tale always that no one can ever get a solid physical evidence of a Bigfoot, unless, well, it's not solid physical evidence, but talking to Jim White, talking to myself, and unwrapping the Uwhippie ceremony, the Bigfoot is deeply tied into the Uwhippie ceremony, and it's deeply tied to Native American history and spiritual history. And it's that there's tribes that call him the hairy brother, or the hairy relative. So it's yeah, I agree with a ton of the stuff that the guest was talking about.
Yeah, she was definitely on point, and gotta have her back for the giant conversation. Just this, focusing on that. Tonight was about really before Roswell, and just that database of just crazy, just, man, historical accounts, descriptions, and things of that nature. Because I always say all the time is that in order, you would kind of, history is a good measure for what it is we're seeing now. And when you have a book that just has case after case after case after case, you could literally take whatever is next, like the next sighting that happens, the next big UFO thing that happens, take that before you just throw it away and say, no, this is garbage, it's nothing. Let's take that and let's go look at the book, and let's go look historically and see if we can find something that lines up with that. And then that way we know that there's at least something to it. And that's why I was saying to her, when you start, from what I've read so far, and I kind of knew this already, but based on other historic stuff, but when you start looking back, you realize that find this aren't really the thing. It's really these fears, it's really these other things that are more commonly seen. And that's why people keep trying to throw away the egg thing like it was nothing. But historically, it's a shape that's been seen a lot. So, with that being said, we're going into our final break of the night right here on the Spaced Out Radio After Hours radio show. the After Hours Wrap Up with me, Mr. Rob G, and that guy, Drew Banky. And we'll be right back right after the break. Don't go anywhere. This is it. 30 minutes left. Come right back. All right, clear. And I brought this up. Did you have some? Huh?
Kapow.
Kapow? Boom, pow, ping,
Boom,
boom.
kapow. Bing, bop, boom.
I brought this up because I wanted to, and maybe I guess I can I'll save the story until you get back.
That's just one thing I wanted to say when I was listening to the guest. So I did a podcast last night, interview, and one of the things we were talking about was grounding, and how older civilizations we can't really know what they were experiencing at that time because they were living in a totally different environment. They weren't cut off by social media. They weren't cut off by electronics. They were grounding all the time. This is, it's just funny that it's almost very specific terms that we were talking about last night on it, that I was talking about last night in an interview that come up today, and when Barbara was talking about the grounding and the tribes, because we were talking about Chaco Canyon and how people can't really wrap their heads around what was going around in Chaco Canyon, but we're looking at from a different perspective. We're looking at from much more removed perspective. If you were living in that canyon, you were farming, you were hunting, you were living off the land, drinking the water. You weren't drinking any soda or anything like that. You weren't having any screen time. You were walking around on bare feet all the time. You were in tune with a circadian rhythm, and you tie all those things together, and what were the dreams like of those people then? What they might have been having full on visions, just in non-medicine ceremonies, just in sweat lodges and things like that. So it's just interesting how the message always stays kind of grouped together.
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. And and I'm a kid. I was a kid. I'm not a kid anymore, but I was a kid that used to go outside without my shoes on. Like I used to go, like when we used to go to play football, I'm taking my shoes off, man, because if I could run faster and I could do, and maybe I could, and maybe I couldn't. Maybe it was just something that I felt. But when I think about it, it's like, man, maybe I was getting the energy from the earth, and I was performing at the super high level, and I just wasn't realizing it. And you know what I mean? And I just needed that connection with the earth, and I'm outrunning everybody now. And it was just something that I used to always do. I used to go outside without my shoes on, and it's like, you should be doing that. Actually, everybody should probably be doing that actually more than you do.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a natural alignment, and these videos that's coming out now from this interview I did in Vegas with the Digital Social Hour. One that's getting a lot of attention is the one talking about breatharians and living off the sun and things like that, living off the sun energy. And just the other day, I've been getting a lot of flack. Like I've been getting a lot of flack of people. Like people get really touchy when you start talking about a food addiction, but really as humans, we're addicted to food. Not saying we're meant to live off of food, but we definitely eat more food than what we need to eat, to survive. Like we really should be outside more, living in more in tune with nature, and we wouldn't need as much food as we do. Also, like we overeat. Like that's especially in the West. Like, I'm overweight. I'm probably 20-30 pounds overweight, and the scale goes out, with the masses of just being addicted to that taste, of something tasting good, and you eat too much of it. We do it all the time. We all do it. So,
Please.
but a post come out, and it was talking about a study had just come out, and it was talking about how um, another study. I spoke about a study I think last weekend about a study come out, and it was talking about organs that need sunlight to
20
to
seconds.
operate properly. But another one come out, and it even goes further into it that there's links that we actually might be able to gain energy from being out in the sun and in nature.
Yeah, plants get it, and yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I feel energized. My dogs go in the sun when they're ready to go outside and play.
Yeah.
As we have 10 seconds left, I want to thank Simply Cocoa for your support of Space Out Radio tonight. If this is your first time here, we do this on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, 8 p.m. Pacific to 11 p.m. Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. After hour number 3, the last half hour of the show already is crazy. With the After Hours wrap-up right here with Drew Banky, it's been awesome. We had our guest, Barbara Delong. Awesome, hours 1 and 2. If you missed it, hop in the archive, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. As we jump right back into the wrap-up, before we get into some UFO and weird news in a moment here, we're going to go ahead and talk giants real quick here. And for the radio audience, I have on the screen a picture of the Guinness Book World Records tallest man ever that we know of in current time. And it's not really that current, actually. This guy was, his name is Robert Pershing Wadlow, the tallest man ever. He was 22 years old. He passed away when he was 22 years old in 1940. So going back, what is that? 1918 is when he was born. This guy was 8'11". 8'11", which is insane, insanely tall. And this would be what you would consider a giant. So for the radio audience, if you just go look up, Google Robert Wadlow, Wadlow, you will see the tallest man ever. Let me go ahead and read this the story here. The doctors say this is a tragic death, unfortunately, of Robert Wadlow, the tallest man ever. The doctors say I won't get home for the celebrations. Robert Pershing Wadlow, the tallest man ever, spoke his last words a few hours before passing away in his sleep at 1:30 in the morning on the 15th of July, 1940. He was just 22 years old. Robert Wadlow died due to a septic blister on his right ankle caused by a poorly fitted iron brace. And that's a shame. That's just so far back where we didn't know how to, cure or remedy everything, which he wore to support his legs. He measured 8'11.1" or 2.72 meters for metric people, and weighed 439 pounds or 199 kilograms for you Canadians and in UK people at the time of his death. But how did something so small as a blister cause Wadlow's untimely death? It helps to know that Robert Wadlow possessed the largest feet ever. He wore U.S. size 37 AA shoes, which in the UK is size 36, and in the EU is size 75, equivalent to 18.5 inches long. Unfortunately, due to his extreme height and weight, he was plagued by foot injuries throughout his life. He required medical attention at Barnes Hospital in St. Louis, Missouri, several times, according to the newspaper transcribed by the Illinois Genealogy Trails. So, just shows that this guy would be considered a giant, and they're rare, but they're out there. They exist, and they're humans. They're just like you and me, no different than you and me, just really, really tall.
Wow.
Really, really tall. So you that goes to scale. You see how long that casket is. So that's got to be a huge casket. But look at the girls standing next to him. They're barely coming up to his hip. That is insane.
The car behind him.
Yeah. So giants are definitely a thing. I think they're just, obviously, like I was saying earlier, you can go outside for the next a month and you probably won't see anyone abnormally tall. You probably, 6'4", six, that's tall. But we have basketball players that are like 7 foot, 7'2". Like you're not gonna see a person that tall unless you go to a basketball game. So the likelihood of finding historical giants is probably going to be just as likely as it is for you to walk outside and see Shaquille O'Neal, somebody the height of Shaquille O'Neal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's definitely different. When I'm in Florida, so my buddy lives in Florida. When I'm down there, and we if he goes somewhere and he rides with me, so I have a Tahoe and he sits in the passenger seat and his knees are like he looks uncomfortable like setting in the passenger seat of the Tahoe. It's all the way back, and reclined, and it's just it's just weird because you know pu- the most places that we live in are not designed for people, or are designed for people around 6'2", 6'3", or below. They're not really designed. If you look at door frames and stuff like that, he has to duck going through door frames and stuff like that
Yeah.
lots of times. So it's just yeah, it's just but we look at that as norm, and seeing a picture of this, like, so this was 19 he was born in 1918. So let's go back to, there's stories of cowboys in the West finding giants that were living with tribes and things like that when they start settling the West. There's all types of folklore and stuff like that out there. So if you back up from 1918, like into the 1800s or the early 1800s and beyond, like that would be the time frame of 8 to 10 foot people. Like,
Yeah.
and I just wonder, they said this gentleman was like plagued with feet trouble, leg trouble, things like that. I just wonder if um, he wasn't if we weren't so domesticated. Like really we're domesticated animals. Like humans are highly and we domesticated ourselves, but we're domesticated animals, so I just wonder if he wasn't so domesticated, if he wasn't forced to wear shoes, walk on concrete, things like that. Just so what we were talking about before the break of this of that of the after hours wrap up, of being more grounded and being more connected, things like that. Maybe his body would have naturally supported his size.
And then I'm just thinking about this, because just like you said, this same gentleman right here, this 500 years ago, it's gonna be written in history that he was just a giant, that he wasn't just abnormally tall, but that he was this separate thing called a giant, right?
Hmm.
And maybe there was a point in time, because somebody points out it has to do with it's gigantism, and someone's pointing out it's the pituitary tumult. So it's kind of like his barber was saying, like a defect. Now, what if, and it's sort of rare, but what if it was like more prevalent at one point
Right.
in time in history, where that defect, you ended up finding way more people. I mean, I'm just thinking about that
No,
because it makes.
I'm with it. What if one of the first defects was a 6 foot person you know, being in a tribe, and that was one of the first defects. And really, it was 10 foot was the norm. And what if we're just an extended part of the defect? And at one point, the giants were the quote unquote giant was the norm. 8 foot or above, or 9 foot or above, or whatever number you want to put on. I saw people in the chat putting different numbers on what definitions of giants are, but like you say, like if you were to take this guy, take him back just a couple hundred years, or just take him into a tribe that didn't know anything, like a isolated tribe in the jungle or something like that. If you took him down in Peru, because the the general height down there is a lot smaller than the United States, so it's 5-6 inches smaller. Everyone's 5'6", 5'7", 5'8" is a normal height. If you take that dude down there, like they would consider him a giant in an isolated tribe in the jungle down in Peru.
That's true. That's true. And
You
here's
know,
another thing.
you got to look at from perspective. Like I talk about this all the time. We overlook the variables in perspective. Like we all,
Here's another thing. If you see, just like in current day, you'll have a basketball player who's tall, obviously, who will marry a female basketball player who's also tall, and then now they have a tall kid. And so if you have two or three couples that are basketball players and they have kids that are obviously going to be tall too, all of a sudden, if they're in a group together, all of a sudden you have like 10 really tall individuals at one place at one time. But the other part of that is that I think that I've seen this. I've seen kids who, when we talk about tall on average, we look at a female who is 5'9" and say she's tall. And then we look at the father who might be 6 foot, 6'1", and we consider that tall. So, but I've seen kids that play basketball as kids and they're regular sized kids. And it seems like they are, because their goal is to become a basketball player. I've seen kids grow for no reason at all, dude. I've seen kids, literally is no history of anyone in the family being that tall, but because this person chose to play basketball and was really driven by it, that person ended up growing to a height to where they were able to play and stand with other players. Not everybody, but I've seen kids do that, where a kid was regular size at 12 years old and then all of a sudden just grew overnight because he was so into basketball. And I think you can almost make yourself do that.
Are you trying to tell me that your mind can manifest a reality?
That's what I'm
Are
saying.
you trying to tell me that?
That's what I'm saying. I've seen it. I've
No,
seen it
it's
multiple times.
well, I believe in all that, man, but there's to take it a step further, we're going into an age where stem cells are becoming more and more well known, more and more available to uh a greater part of the population. 5 years ago you had to be multimillionaire. Now it's getting to the point where you can afford stem cell therapy. Like can repair injuries, knee injuries, things like that, back injuries, skeletal problems in your back, things like that. But it's only we're starting to figure out we can actually optimize. We can optimize humans and biohack and things like that. So we're going into an interesting age. And the understanding of frequency, vibration, energy. There's I talked last week, last Friday I did a interview too, and one of the things that we were talking about on that show was the power of your mind and how it can affect reality. And we really need to start looking at accepting that as truth. There's two truths that contradict most people's thoughts, and we agree on these two truths, but we put them together, a lot of people shy away from it. One is energy never dies; it only moves from one point to another. Two is we have energy inside of us. We know that there's a spark inside of us. Where we get hooked up to paddles and they jumpstart our heart like a car when we have a cardiac arrest. They put a spark back into us to try to jumpstart us again. So there's energy inside of us, and energy never dies. It only gets transferred from one point to another. So those two facts, and then when you put those two facts together, the truth has to be we never die. Our energy just keeps going on and on and on. But when you put those truths together and say sit down with a Christian or a Catholic or something or a Catholic, that belief pattern is, we go to heaven or hell, and we don't buy into reincarnation, but the truths that the collective has agreed upon, those two truths combined together come up with another truth that's called reincarnation, and we keep shying away from that. So we have to just look at, like, if we agree upon things, like, we have to put those together and think logically about it. And most of us, the masses, I'm not talking about the audience or anyone, probably anyone ever listened to this show, but I'm just saying, like, the masses, the collective, the mass collective, the people that listen to legacy media, NBC and Fox and all those guys, and the people that get their information from those news sources, they won't believe in reincarnation, but they will believe in those two truths. It's just crazy.
True facts, Drew Banky. True facts. True facts. I'm about to go ahead and shut this thing down, man. We're going to do this again tomorrow. Awesome conversation with the After Hours wrap up. I do appreciate you, sir, as always. And we will be seeing you again tomorrow.
Much love. Talk to you guys later.
All right. Talk to you soon, buddy. Thanks.
Later.
Take care. That's Drew Banky, and that's the After Hours wrap up, guys. We're going to go ahead and get ready to jump into UFO weird news. We got about 5 minutes left here in the show, guys. So don't go anywhere. You might as well just kick back as we get ready to make this happen right about now.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. But I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, UFO weird news of the week. 900-year-old Vatican book makes eerie claim about when Judgment Day will arrive. The end of the world might be around the corner if this ancient text is to be believed. An old Vatican book dating back a whopping 900 years seems to have predicted when the world is coming to an end, and is not very far off. You'd be forgiven for being skeptical, seeing as we've been here before with historical predictions when it comes to the end of life on Earth, whether it be the Mayans and their infamous 2012 prediction, or even the late British polymath Sir Isaac Newton's call on the world meeting its demise in 2060. Well, that's not here yet, so I guess we'll see. However, the latest so-called end of the world date has come from a passage in a Vatican text. The 900-year-old book is called Prophecy of the Popes, which was said to be written by Saint Malachi in the 1100s. The book predicts when the end of the world is. Found in the archives of the headquarters of the Roman Catholic Church, the book contains 112 cryptic Latin phrases that are said to describe every pope from Celestine II in 1143 to Pope Francis today. It apparently also predicts when Judgment Day, which is when Christians believe Jesus will return, will happen. The book says we can expect the world to end at some point in 2027. meaning we have 2 years left before our doom. Not to sound dramatic or anything, the final passage of text actually reads, quote, "In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will reign Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock amid many tribulations, after which the seven-hilled city will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge the people." The end. Not to put a spanner in the works, though, as the book itself has been written off by many scholars as a forgery of the saint's work that was really published in the 16th century by Benedictine monk Arnold Wyon. It was initially believed that Saint Malachi wrote the book after having a vision following a visit to Rome in 1139, but it's since been brought into dispute with claims it was really published in 1595. However, a number of the saint's alleged predictions have been taken seriously, such as a prediction stating that the 111th Pope would be called Gloria Olivae, meaning glory to the olive, while the 111th Pope was actually named Pope Benedict. The order of Saint Benedicts are known as the Olivetans, leading to some believing that the Pope from 2005 to 2013 was correctly predicted. It has apparently predicted other future events, with some believing that the line "De labor solis," meaning eclipse of the sun, predicted the arrival of Pope John Paul as the leader of the Catholic Church from 1978 to 2005. Pope John Paul was born during a solar eclipse back in the 1920s. So that's a little bit food for thought. Predicting the end of the world. I'm never on board with dates. I always hate dates. So, and we see dates come and go all the time, as they said in the predictions of the Mayans 2012. Remember, that was just only 13 years ago, where the world was supposed to end in the year 2012. I forgot what date it was supposed to be, but it came and it went. I think they made a movie about it or something like that. And that's about all we got. So I wouldn't put anything into any of these stories, specifically when they try to pinpoint a date. But some people say disclosure is going to happen in 2027. So are they potentially predicting that? I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. But guess what? I want to thank my guest tonight, Barbara Delong, for being so awesome and hanging out with us for hours 1 and 2. She was fantastic. I also want to thank Steve Stockton, Tells Untold Mysteries and Mysteries, and our guy, Drew Banky, with the After Hours wrap-up. Also want to thank the guy that you hear right there, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Doll. He is the guy that rocks us out each and every weekend, teaches us to never say never again, because, yes, the phenomena is real. It's real, which means anything and everything is possible. So if you love the show tonight, if you showed your appreciation, hit the like button and also throw your horns up. Also want to thank our viewers and listeners from whenever and wherever in the world you may be listening or viewing from. Thank you for tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. And what's that, you ask? We own the night. This show has been copyrighted Spaced Out Radio, SR Media Ventures Limited. It has been a pleasure once again serving you as your host. I am Mr. Rob G. This is the After Hours Radio Show. And to all you space travelers out there, this is not a goodbye nor a farewell. However, you can best believe that as we go off air for the night, we'll be doing this thing again, same time, same place. Make sure you're there. We'll love to see you back. Have a great rest of your night, guys. Take care. All right, we are crystal clear. Once again, want to thank our guest tonight, Barbara Delong, for being so awesome, guys. I may sound like I was overselling the book, but believe me, I'm not. You definitely want to go get that thing. From what I've read so far, and I'm going to continue to read it, so much information in there. I want to make sure that everybody has access to that because I think everyone can benefit from knowing things you didn't know, right? Moving the needle. That's what we do. That's what we'll continue to do. I want to thank all our super chatters for tonight, too. We had Showtime 787. Appreciate your love and support. We had Lulu Bell. Thank you for your love and support. We had Ann Joanne. Thank you for your love and support. We had Lulu Bell again. We do appreciate your love and support. And Simply Coco. Thank you so much for your love and support. The Spaced Out Radio and the After Hours Radio Show. We couldn't do it without you guys. Remember, if you're here for the first time, please consider hitting that subscribe button. At the very least, hit the like button. Let everybody know that you appreciated the show. So it kind of does the thing to the algorithm, gets the show out there. It would be appreciated. And yeah, this is pretty much it. So definitely want to thank everybody for coming on out here tonight. It has been a pleasure, guys. I'm about to get up out of here, and maybe you guys should do the same. Sleep well, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.